Welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Maya.
I'm Annika.
I'm Vidushi.
I'm Priya.
And today we have 2024 superlative tech news highlights. So this episode format is going to be a little different than our normal case study. We'll be going through 4 superlatives and we'll be choosing the tech news story that is the best fit for that superlative. And so first we're going to start off with most likely to keep you up at night. We're going to be talking about the state-sponsored hacking reshaping global cyber warfare.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, back in February, Microsoft revealed that Midnight Blizzard, which is a Russian state-sponsored hacking group, gained access to highly classified email systems. Over time, we're seeing that players are being a lot more strategic, a lot more precise, and they're operating with like this level of depth that we just haven't seen before. So in this specific scenario with Midnight Blizzard, they were super strategic about what passwords they were testing on, how often they were going into it. So it's really not just like random guesswork anymore. And I think that's a lot scarier than the alternative.
Yeah, I think it's also scary given the quantum computing shifts and breakthroughs in quantum computing shifts, right? Because like now whoever has access to that technology can also do password breakthroughs. And we don't even know where Russia's at with that.
Yeah, I know. I was reading about that because of Willow. And everyone was talking about how crypto passwords were going to get out now. I think that's why I was reading about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just clearly seems like we don't have enough defense systems in place, especially with like Russia and China. They're our biggest adversaries in the space right now.
Do you think that's because they're more offensive and it's more difficult to be defensive than it is to be offensive?
I think that is definitely true. But I think at the same time, the United States hasn't spent as much money or put as much of a focus on cybersecurity as some of these other countries. Because like these groups, they're hacking groups that already exist within these countries, and then governments are giving them money to sponsor these attacks that they're doing because they want to like gain access to information within the United States.
And like you were saying, they kind of just sit in those operating systems or those machines and you don't really know for how long and what they have access to.
I feel like when any cybersecurity case comes out, they're like, don't know. Like, they could have been in there for a year. They could have been in there for 5 years. We don't know how long they've been there. We don't know what information they have. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so I guess to circle back to the original Midnight Blizzard attack, Microsoft decided to start the Secure Future Initiative. It's called SFI. This is called like the largest cybersecurity engineering project in history. And it was basically a company-wide initiative to make sure that things like this wouldn't happen. For example, locking down test accounts, because those are accounts that are particularly vulnerable to these types of attacks. And so this was not only within the security organization at Microsoft, but within all of the different organizations they have.
Yeah. And it seems like everyone is moving towards this, like what you call as a zero trust policy, where you don't trust anyone in your organization. You give like least privilege. And like all the apps and even startups are building with this in mind.
Yeah, I think zero trust is really important and like very top of mind for all cybersecurity companies because we kind of have to assume breach in any scenario.
Honestly, assume breach in any scenario is like my parents when they get a charge on their card. My dad's like, who charged $100 on my Amex? It was obviously me. Like, it was not a Russian hacker.
Yeah, and I think this was the year where we saw how fragile our systems are, even when you point to something like the CrowdStrike attack, because it's like...
We were on a plane during that.
Oh, you were?
We were going to New York. We're on the plane, and it's like, there's a big hack, and it may affect planes' ability to fly.
Well, yeah, at the time, like, they didn't know if it was a hack or it ended up being an outage. Yeah. But, like, in that moment, you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on. All these planes are being grounded. I think it was something like 5,000 flights got canceled.
Oh, there's no hack associated?
No. It was a bug in their system. Whoever did that, RIP you. But yeah, I think that was the first time where we saw how interconnected our systems are. And if something goes down...
I mean, it shows what like a cyber warfare could really look like.
There's some pretty drastic things that can happen. You can take down a country's electrical grid, for example.
Yeah. And I think that the only reason that it probably hasn't happened yet is because it's literally like the nuclear war. Like it would start like an all-out war between countries if you were to do something like that.
Something that came out last week.
Yeah, it was relatively recently.
Was about China's target to the U.S.
It wasn't just the U.S. It was like dozens of countries that China targeted. But there was a Chinese state-sponsored hacking group. They basically targeted global telecom networks, and they compromised over 200,000 different consumer devices. So this is like phones, cameras, video recorders, routers, and it wasn't a specific telecom provider. It was across T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, literally all of them. It's called the Salt Typhoon campaign. I don't know where they come up with these names, but they just installed malware like directly onto all of these devices. And they got in through some Cisco software.
Like old Cisco software.
Old Cisco software, which kind of like points to why initiatives like the Secure Futures Initiative is so important to have.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these companies don't update their software and create these vulnerabilities for themselves. It came out after that it was specifically trying to target like Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, JD Vance, and they, I'm pretty sure, successfully infiltrated their phones, but we just don't know what they got.
Yeah, the statement from the U.S. was pretty much, we don't know if those actors are still on their phones.
Yeah.
We don't know what information they got. And
this is why Kamala says she can't be in the family group chat anymore. Have you seen the interview where they're like asking her about running, and she was like, yeah, like I can't be in the family group chat anymore. It's like really sad. I used to get like pictures and memes. Well, I guess she can be back in it. I'll tell you that. You're back in it, girl.
In general, it is just scary how much is unknown about it, because we know it's evolving rapidly and it's only increasing as technology continues to develop.
I do think, though, hope is not lost. Is how I would put it.
Mine's pulling like an Obama card.
she's hopeful.
We've seen cybersecurity startups raise $4.5 billion in Q2 2024, which is a 144% year-over-year increase and a 63% rise.
Well, you can't necessarily draw a one-to-one though with that, because on the other side, technology is also developing.
Yeah, but my point is that there's increased funding in the cybersecurity space, right? And
for sure.
And this is because if you take it back to personal interests, right? There are very, very wealthy people in the VC world that don't want to get hacked and want US to be, again, the dominant world power. And so they're personally invested in funding projects to fight against this. My personal take is that as funding and threats increase, as long as the US economy and very wealthy billionaires and VCs are still representative of like a large amount of the funding, they're personally interested in investing in cybersecurity.
I'm less optimistic only because of the dynamic at play where we're on the defense and other people are on the offense, and they only need one attack out of hundreds to go through, which I think puts us in a tough position even if we're well funded.
And that is the issue with cybersecurity, is that it literally only takes
One hack.
one time to get in.
We're probably not going to, like, we're less likely to launch an offensive cyber attack than Russia, for example, that's already on a downfall trajectory and desperate.
I feel like Trump could like low-key do it.
Yeah, sure. I feel like he might threaten it. And then I see more likely scenarios, he threatens it, and then they're like, we'll beat you to it, and then we're like forced into a corner. But also, the last thing I'd say on this is, Priya, you'd understand this the best since you're in cybersecurity. It's also technically more difficult to build a defensive capability for an offensive attack,
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, one of the things that I've worked on is building these detection systems, and it's really difficult because they have a million different ways to enter. And so it's like, you have to be able to predict any single way that a hacker could possibly get into your system. And I think AI has helped a lot with this, because you're able to actually like predict what all of these different things might be. But when we look at the past, you're looking at things like volume limits of like, how many times have someone tried to do a password? Like that's not actually going to stop someone from getting in. So technology and AI is helping us get there, but it's definitely really difficult.
The other thing I wanted to say is I would want to see a shift in U.S. government funding from military funding to cybersecurity, because I see it as like solving the same issue. It's like we had a military to protect us, right? In the same way we need funding in cybersecurity to protect us. So if we can argue and lobby for that funding to change, that would be great. I mean, I don't know if it's actually happening.
I actually think funding, I know we're not doing predictions in this episode anymore, but that is one of my predictions. I think that defense funding will shift from like Boeing and Lockheed. Like Trump has already said, I don't want to fund Lockheed. Their executives are at DEI conferences while China attacks us, or whatever he said, which is honestly not even a bad point. So I feel like it'll go to like Palantir, Anduril, and in tandem with that cybersecurity startups. Yeah. Because they're low cost, high tech, and that might actually be one of the areas where I overlap in the slightest amount with Trump, where I do think he will put like Boeing and Lockheed and stuff on warning more than a more establishment player.
Cool. Well, that wraps up our story on most likely to keep you up at night. I mean, I think it's still going to keep me up at night during 2025.
Thinking about how they're going to hack into your phone and listen to your phone calls.
Honestly, they're probably already doing that.
Yeah.
My whole thing with hacking is just like, I'm not cool enough, or like, I don't have enough to like warrant someone hacking me.
We know.
You know?
If you hack into Maya's phone, you just see her text us, wait.
Nothing
No
else.
additional context. If my sister texts me that, I'd be like, oh my god, she has so much drama. When Maya texts me that, I'm like, oh, she's just like not having a complete thought.
Moving on to our next superlative, most likely to cause a breakup. Ooh. This is specifically on how the DOJ has created an antitrust suit against Google. Basically, their claim is that Google has a search monopoly, and their remedy is that they want to split up Google from Google Chrome and Android as well.
Yeah, I think to start with, antitrust regulation is essentially trying to promote fair competition in the market, and that could be anything that they deem anti-competitive. So that means having a monopoly or price fixing, things like that.
In this case, the DOJ must show that Google possesses a monopoly power in the relevant markets that they're going to core over. So the three relevant markets are general search services, general search text ads, and search ads. So specifically for like general search services, they define this as like a product that's like a one-stop shop, like you ask a question and get an answer. And so they're saying that 90% of queries in the general search services are in Google, and normally 60 to 70% of the market is necessary to deem a company as like a monopolist.
And Google definitely agrees on this, that they do have a monopoly on search.
Yeah.
But they're basically saying that the DOJ is defining the market too narrowly as to what search really is.
Yeah. So basically, DOJ is excluding the search in specialized verticals like Amazon, Yelp, social media, Expedia, etc. And especially with TikTok and Instagram on the rise, people are going to TikTok to like ask questions.
Yeah, TikTok is literally my search engine. Like I know here it says that Bing is 4%, but I think TikTok, if it was classified under search, I feel like it would be at more than 20%.
Exactly. So this is what Google's argument back to like the DOJ is. So that's just in the general search services. And then the next two are general search text ads, which are ads that appear in line with search results, and then search ads in general. And Google's argument for this one is that they're also excluding parts of the market like Instagram ads. So like if you're like looking for a sweater, like you're not only going to see it on Google, but you're also going to shop Instagram, and there's ads on Instagram.
Absolutely. No, the amount of things I've bought from Instagram ads, it's honestly shocking because it's never anything I need.
Sometimes I feel like my phone is listening to me.
It's definitely listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once the DOJ like defined the markets, then they have to show that Google engaged in anti-competitive conduct to maintain the monopoly power.
The couple things that they say that they're engaging in anti-competitive conduct, the first is paying other companies for Google to be the default search engine. For example, Google pays Apple $20 billion a year to be the default search engine in Safari. And Google's response to this is they're actually helping Apple as a business. 15% of Apple's profits come from them paying for their search engine.
15% of Apple's profits come from Google Pay. What?
That's insane.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Google's basically saying that this helps the end user have a cheaper product because they're able to give Apple so much money.
That's where I think Lena Khan's philosophy comes into play in an interesting way. And she's been the FTC chair, and she's been controversial. Some people love her, some people don't like her. Mm-hmm. But I know that she became well known for a paper she wrote while at Yale Law School on Amazon. And she basically argues that traditionally antitrust is thought of as proven when prices go up. And that historically makes sense, which I think makes sense to all of us, right?
Like ChatGPT is charging $200 on their monthly subscription now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then she says, in the modern day and age with tech companies, it's not always the best metric to see if price for consumers went up. You should just look at market dominance. And this makes sense to me because I feel like with something like Google, you might be keeping prices still low for consumers, but that's because you are also making money B2B and you're collecting consumer data.
Yeah, there's this whole ecosystem argument that Google is helping the consumer because they own such a huge part of the ecosystem. They can have economies of scale when you're getting data between, getting an email, making that a notification on your calendar, having that notification get pushed to your phone. Like being a part of every part of a person's life is helpful to the consumer because they have ways to integrate across your entire life and provide value to you. And then that helps also in your browser and searching for information and getting access to things that you want quickly.
Like I do agree that that's true because I know even for work when I was using Bing because it was the default search engine and you had to, there's certain things that Google just knows about you because of your profile that it's really annoying to have to train someone else to learn.
Exactly. And that's like the crux of antitrust is like, it's not just about proving that you need more competition in the market. It's about, is this competition going to reflect in more value for the consumer? And Google's whole argument is like, no, because we have this ecosystem, because we have everything, we can provide the best value. Kind of like similar to Palantir's model that we were talking about in the last episode, where it's like, because Palantir integrates in so many parts of the company, they can provide end-to-end value because they have all your data and they can take action off their data.
But I do think there's another component to it, which is if everything you use is part of the Google ecosystem, the same way if it's all part of the Apple ecosystem, that is going to be more convenient. But there's another price that gets paid around consumer rights. Like Google has said that they're going to decrease the cookies they're collecting for like years, and they just like push it off every single year. So I feel like tech can't really be evaluated under a traditional antitrust framework because the consumer might have convenience but is giving up other things in exchange, like their data and their privacy.
Is that an antitrust issue or is that a data privacy issue?
No, I think it's an antitrust issue because if in certain areas there's more competition, then there's more pressure on companies to protect users' privacy because users have an easier alternative. But if you have that same sort of situation with search, it's like, I'm not going to stop using Google search.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
So
you,
that's
consumers
where
don't
I
have
think-
any other alternative.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not that I'm paying high prices in a dollar amount. I'm paying a price in a different way.
Yeah. So moving on into remedies, the way the trial works is now that the judge has agreed that Google has monopoly power, there's another trial, which is about the remedies. Going into 2025, they're going to propose a bunch of changes to Google. And a couple of the changes that they've talked about already is that they've thought about splitting off Chrome and Android.
Yeah, it essentially means that Chrome is the most popular browser and Google is the most popular search engine. Them working together in tandem does create an unfair monopoly because it's not only is it a product feedback loop, but it's also like keeping you within that Google ecosystem.
But then what if Chrome just like sold to OpenAI and then they use OpenAI search and now all of a sudden they're the monopoly?
Yeah, so basically like Google does argue that breaking off Chrome is going to kill the business because it's like free and offered on an open source basis. But then there's this other argument that Chrome can just now have the ability to basically negotiate any other contract with another search engine, like with OpenAI, and then book revenue based on that. Because normally the way browsers make revenue is through rev share of whatever the search engine is making.
And like to that point, OpenAI was actually thinking about making their own browser. If they bought Chrome, they would not only just have the user data that they get from the ChatGPT browser, but a browser that you can search everything.
I saw that Chrome has, I think, 61% of the share in browsers, and so it would literally instantly give that to OpenAI.
Yeah.
But I don't know, can like OpenAI buy a company that makes it a monopoly?
Well, yeah, like it could, and the FTC could just block it, like the same way the FTC blocks.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of
yeah, like
mergers.
they
Like
blocked
Figma,
the
Adobe.
exactly,
Yeah.
like they blocked
Or-
the Figma acquisition.
Yeah, and Google's other argument also is like splitting out Chrome from Google is not going to make much of a difference because in Europe they showed a selection screen and 97% of people
Still picked Google.
Still picked Google. And so because of OpenAI and like just the AI shift in general with ChatGPT and chat-based search engines, even Perplexity, I don't know if that's necessarily, if that survey result still holds up.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't still hold true because we've seen so many smaller players rise.
Yeah. The other remedy that they do propose is that Google is not allowed to engage with paying manufacturers anymore. Like they can't pay Apple to make Google the default search engine on Safari.
They also want them to like share their data with competitors, right?
Yes, yeah. And that's a big one too, because they say that that data is like going to be very useful for Gemini AI. And if they have to share that data, then they're essentially giving IP away. I think what's interesting, though, is the effect of the U.S. election on this hearing. With like the new attorney general and new head of antitrust being appointed, it's likely that the large-scale breakup will be taken off the table, I think. But still the remedy around Google paying device manufacturers still might be a remedy that they go after.
Yeah, I can see that one being valid because of other competitors not being able to come in the space, or the barrier for entry is a lot higher. But yeah, I think if at this point, at the point that Google is at right now, making Chrome a separate business wouldn't really do much.
Yeah, I think Trump specifically has said that he's worried about this hurting the competitiveness with China. I think he is on board with big tech because they have so much funding to kind of fuel a lot of innovation, where it's like, how do we stay as a world power, and that we are now seeing our world power through tech. And so if we want to stay competitive, he believes that competitiveness is through big tech. And I think the DOJ believes that competitiveness is through a more fragmented market.
Yeah, and Google, because of the amount of money and profit they have the ability to fund something like DeepMind without having a short-term guarantee of profits. And a lot of these big tech companies have publicized their research. I think Google did a bunch of research on proteins that was really helpful for the scientific community. So I don't think that's a lie. I think it is true that big tech companies invest in potentially loss leader projects because they have the bandwidth. But I also think I kind of like agree with both sides.
Well, I also just think like circulation and distribution, like people also trust a name like Google. And so even when it comes to like Waymo, for example, and self-driving cars, people just trust Google. And so if they have Google backing it, I feel like it's more likely to take hold in society.
It's also difficult to support a counterfactual. It's hard for the FTC to come in and say, without Google having so much of the market, there would have been more innovation because it's a counterfactual.
Yeah.
So we don't know in which case there would be more innovation. And I think that helps Google because Google can just point to the great things they've done and been like, isn't this so great? And it's tough to be like, well, maybe things would be even greater if you weren't so big, because a company the size of Google in tech will always be able to point to innovation, even if that rate is slower.
Yeah,
and even to see that in an actual example, like in the Microsoft case that happened in 1998, where the DOJ basically said Internet Explorer was abusing its power and conducting an anti-competitive practices.
Yeah, it's because they were like bundling, right? Like,
And
which
and
they still do.
I know.
And so that case, the DOJ was successful in dividing those two, but the result of that we saw was that the number 2 and 3 players are the ones who actually benefited. There wasn't actually any kind of new innovation or some smaller browsers that were able to come up in that space at that time.
Yeah. It'll be cool to see how this story kind of unfolds, especially with the new president-elect coming into power.
Yeah, I think I agree with your take. I think that this is going to get thrown out and like maybe there'll be like some minor action that's taken, but it's not going to be selling Chrome.
Yeah, so DOJ, I guess you can't cause a breakup anymore.
Well, they cause other breakups.
DOJ tried to home wreck.
Wasn't successful. Moving on to our next superlative. Now we have most likely to get buyer's remorse. So
wait, is it Maya? This girl literally showed up to our podcast recording with a sweater on that still had the tags on.
It's like a little trial run. Oh my god, I'm gonna get dogs for this. We cannot put this in the pod.
No, we have to.
No, we
have
can't.
to.
No, because it's not that I'm like wearing it. It's that it's like a trial run.
Yeah. No. Just to clarify to the audience, it's not because she like needs to wear it out once and then returns it. Yeah. It's because she's so indecisive and can't figure out if she actually wants it or not.
Yeah.
That she's like, let me just walk around the house in this for 30 minutes. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so we're talking about how Databricks bought Tabular for $2 billion during this past year, and at the time, Tabular only had $1 million in ARR. So this valuation is like, what?
No.
Wait,
what is
business
the multiple?
idea?
200x, right?
Yeah.
Let's start a company, get to $1 million in ARR.
Yeah.
And then you'll get a $2 billion buyout. Since I work in the space, I hear about Databricks and Snowflake doing all these acquisitions, like Mosaic, and Snowflake just acquired Datavolo. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense for their business.
Yeah.
But then when you actually look at the numbers for this acquisition, it just like boggles my mind.
Yeah. So there's a little bit more than just the 1 million ARR. There's reason why this team was worth that much money to them, and I think it really lies in the technology and the need for this technology. So it's important to back up of like, what does Tabular do and why Databricks needed it?
Yeah. So Tabular is essentially a data platform built around Apache Iceberg. And it's also founded by the same people who created Apache Iceberg. And what Iceberg is, it's like this open source data table format for files stored in S3.
Yeah. And specifically files like Parquet, RC, ORC, and all of these files are column-based storage files as opposed to a CSV, which is like row-based. So it's like basically the way your data is organized in the file.
And it's very important that you efficiently store that data to be queried because there's so much real-time analytics that happens from that, and you really want that ecosystem to be robust.
Yeah. So when column-based storage solution came out. The one thing that was still hard was atomicity, which is a common need in database transactions. It's essentially saying that a transaction is either completely done or not done at all, and it's not halfway done, which is important. And so that atomicity wasn't there in like these storage formats. And so both Iceberg and Delta Lake offered this quality on top of Parquet. And Delta Lake was the first one to do that. And Delta Lake was also an open source project.
And developed by
Databricks. Yeah. Delta Lake was this great thing. People were moving on to it because of the atomicity guarantee. They also pitched that they could handle concurrent writes. Concurrent write is like me and Vidushi both writing to the table at the same time, which is crucial for maintaining data integrity. And so people were like, okay, great, let's move to Delta Lake because we store all of these files in Parquet. This is the new way we store things. And Delta Lake offers all these things on top of it. But Databricks is kind of sneaky because they're like the controllers of this open source project.
Yeah, Databricks kind of seems like the bullies in this situation.
Exactly, they are. Essentially, you can't actually get concurrent writes without Databricks because you need to set up your own locking mechanism and using services like DynamoDB.
And so this is like a good move for Databricks because they're basically saying that if you want to get all of the best benefits from Delta Lake, you should be on our platform. But obviously open source users and contributors are kind of frustrated by this because they can't actually get all the capabilities that they want out of this technology that Databricks is claiming that they can.
So as a developer, you're like, okay, fine, I'll use Databricks, I'll use Delta Lake because I need these guarantees, but I'll also have some other systems read and write to these tables. But you can't also do that either. You can't have multiple systems edit this table. You can only have Databricks edit it. And so essentially it required like all these developers to move their entire stack over to Databricks. And that's why we saw the rise in Iceberg.
Iceberg was developed by these employees at Netflix, and they said that let's take all of the things that Delta Lake promises, but make it in this open source and actually usable by everyone.
Yeah.
So is Iceberg the standard now? Is that what everyone is using?
No, it's not necessarily the standard. It's like if you have storage in these Parquet files and you need these guarantees, you either use Delta Lake or Iceberg. And if you don't want to be locked into Databricks' system, you use Iceberg because it's like the next leading industry standard. It's important to note that Netflix doesn't care about Iceberg. They'll support it, but they're not like Databricks where it's like a technical moat of their entire business. So because Netflix is like not a data warehouse or data lake provider, they're not motivated to keep all the improvements as proprietary. And so the engineers basically leave Netflix and decided to start Tabular.
And so with the rise of Iceberg and them becoming more popular for open source contributors, they kind of catch the eye of Snowflake.
Yeah. And so Snowflake is like, okay, we can like compete with Databricks in this setting, and we'll build an engine for Iceberg, which they already have, and let's go acquire like the Iceberg engineers. So it's really not that they're trying to acquire Tabular. They're just trying to acquire the original creators of Iceberg so that Iceberg can be improved upon and become a technical moat as part of Snowflake, the same way Delta Lake is part of Databricks.
And so then Databricks was like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Wait, I think if we had a superlative for like my favorite pair of enemies, it's definitely Snowflake and Databricks. They're so funny.
Yeah, so there is some goss that, some VCs got involved and told Ali, like, yo, you cannot have Snowflake acquire Tabular, like, under any circumstances. So the bid goes from $600 million to $2 billion.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's really just so that, like, your competitor won't have that piece of technology.
I mean, obviously, you cannot justify this acquisition in terms of monetary.
Like financials,
yeah. I think it's just
We tried.
Databricks is just trying to control the market.
It's a power move.
It's a power move. It's like the same way with Delta Lake, where it's like they made Delta Lake unusable. Like they pitched it as usable in the open source format, but really it was unusable unless you had Databricks as part of it.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, I feel like they're going to try to do that to Iceberg.
Yeah. Now that they have Iceberg as part of their ecosystem, I'm sure now they can influence the development of Iceberg as well.
Yeah.
But then won't developers or whoever's storing this data literally have no alternative but to use Databricks?
So actually, Iceberg has been developed enough though that it's easy to use. Like the open source version is easy to use.
Okay, so so there's a portion of it remaining open source.
Yeah.
And then
the current thing, like you can never take it
back.
You can never take it back, right? So the open source version is still out there. It's like now the net new improvements will they be
Released open source, or will they?
Not all Iceberg users are going to go and jump to Databricks right away.
Yeah.
If Databricks now provides some crazy guarantees on top of what's already out there, then they'll go and jump. And I'm sure that's what Databricks is trying to do.
Got it.
It's investing in this team that has like this future potential to provide. But I don't know. $2 billion is like a crazy price. It's not like they actually paid Tabular $2 billion. They just adjusted their like cap table a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's assuming. Like, we don't know if they like paid them.
Yeah,
they probably didn't pay cash.
They didn't pay, there's a cash portion of the deal, but a lot of these acquisitions are just like adjustments on the cap table.
Yeah.
Where you just like have dilution.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah, and Databricks has like a $55 billion valuation right now.
Yeah, so $2 billion on top of that is like a 4% dilution. Like, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like an expensive acquisition that might not pan out, but like in the grand scheme of things, their investors probably don't care.
And it probably positions them better right now, and that's all they really care about.
Yeah.
I wish I knew the back and forth behind the scenes of Databricks and Snowflake.
I'd love to see those closed door conversations.
Of them like, oh yeah, you bid 600 million? Well, how about this 1 billion?
It's crazy to see like data warehouse and data lake providers being so like aggressive. I don't know, if you just think about it.
Wait,
like,
they're so sassy.
They're so sassy, but like they are like the nerds in high school that you don't want to talk to. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then now they're like the big shot players. I don't know if that's a
funny.
crazy comparison. But yeah. Moving on to our final story, we have most likely to sell out.
To no one's surprise, this is OpenAI, and we're going to be talking about how they're going from a nonprofit to a for-profit company.
Yeah, they've had a dramatic year.
It's so dramatic.
I feel like every single headline is just like, this major person is leaving.
Yeah, it is crazy. It originally was founded as a research institution. Their mission has always been to ensure that AGI benefits all of humanity, but a lot of people would say that the company has significantly evolved.
Yeah.
Those people being us.
I don't want to jump the gun too much. Priya, can you start with just a quick timeline for our viewers?
Yeah, so back in 2015, OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit, like we mentioned, by Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Greg Brockman, Ilya Sutskever, along with a bunch of other people. And then in 2019, they created a capped profit subsidiary called OpenAI LP. And so the purpose of doing this was that they were able to attract more investors, but there still is a capped limited upside for investors, so they can only return up to 100x back to the investors.
Yeah, and 100x sounds like, oh, that's a lot. But if you think about it, for example, when Peter Thiel invested $500K in Facebook, it turned into over $1 billion when it IPO'd.
Yeah. And so this allowed Microsoft to invest their initial $1 billion, and that's when the OpenAI Microsoft partnership was kind of like born.
So then in 2021, a lot of the founders leave and they start Anthropic. A year later, ChatGPT goes viral and OpenAI is in all of the headlines. It becomes a household name. And then the year following that is when we have Sam Altman removed as CEO for the entirety of 5 days.
Yeah, this was honestly crazy. I remember when this happened last year.
I know, that's basically just a little PTO break.
And then after Sam Altman was reinstated, there was a lot of internal restructuring that happened. So a ton of people left to either start their own companies or they were poached by other companies. They lost co-founders, senior researchers, and then most recently, their CTO, Mira Marathi, left.
Yeah, and they recently raised a $6.6 billion round, which speaks to their overall shift to being focused on a more traditional venture-scaled model.
Yeah, so then in September of this year, they said that they're considering restructuring into a public benefit corporation, which is essentially a for-profit entity. That's the way like Anthropic is structured today. And they haven't officially filed for this conversion yet, but it's something that they are planning to do. And like Annika was saying earlier, Elon Musk filed an injunction to block this from happening.
Yeah, and if OpenAI doesn't restructure itself as a for-profit company within 2 years, investors can actually ask for their money back.
So I guess the first question that we have to talk about is, with all of these people leaving OpenAI and just general concerns around safety coming up, do you guys think that we've seen a clear departure away from the original mission?
I mean, clearly the people at OpenAI did very strongly feel that way. The board members and even Ilya, the company that he started is called like Safe Super Intelligence. So he's really emphasizing the safety of it all.
I guess to back up, like you said, a lot of people have left, but they usually post this very amicable tweet that's
Yeah.
like, where it's been like the greatest experience of my life. OpenAI is changing the world, and I'm excited to see what Sam Altman does. Jan Lika was more like, the first two tweets read like that, and then he was like, also, like, I'm very concerned, and he says the OpenAI experiment is potentially dangerous.
Yeah, and then as a part of that tweet storm, he says over the past years, safety, culture, and processes have taken a backseat to shiny products because they found huge commercial success with ChatGPT back in 2022, and it's only grown exponentially since there. And this kind of like started what I like to call like the Gen AI arms race. It feels to me as though they're trying to capitalize on that, and ethics and safety really did take a backseat to that.
Yeah, because the company was founded in 2015, but they don't hire their first CFO or CPO till 2023, which is 8 years later, the year after ChatGPT has so much success.
And then most recently, OpenAI announced that they're partnering with Anduril. And so this is huge because this is a clear departure away from their mission, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're kind of like this wave of high-tech AI defense, I would say, that's replacing the legacy players like Lockheed and Boeing. There's a lot of details about this contract that's actually mysterious. Like, they didn't release the dollar amount.
Classic.
Yeah, but actually, I feel like a lot of these defense contracts, they do publicize the number. But basically, the model underlying like ChatGPT,
Like GPT-4.
GPT-4, yeah. It will be incorporated in Anduril's drones that take down enemy drones. The key thing I found interesting was how much of a slippery slope OpenAI is going down, because in between the little bout of Ilya pushing Sam out and then Ilya leaving, which was like a 5-month period, they deleted the fact that they won't work with defense tech from their policy.
And it was specifically like offensive weapon systems, right? Because I know that they previously had a cybersecurity deal with the US Department of Defense.
So actually, no, I had this question too. So basically, they deleted it out of their policy in like earlier this year or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about offensive military technology. It was just saying like, we will not engage with defense technology. But after that was when they signed the DoD contract. But the DoD contract and the Anduril contract do specify it has to be defensive. And that's why I'm saying it's a slippery slope, because even the Anduril contract, they basically have drawn this red line that their model cannot be used to kill people. But I think it's honestly a stupid line to draw, because
Well, it's also like, how are you going to draw that line?
Yeah, I mean, you're not. Like,
Yeah.
if you're giving them your software and they're going to be training their drones on all of your data, they're obviously going to use that same training data on their offensive capabilities as well.
Well, and also just like the use of drones in general, like it's bound to happen.
Yeah, and Anduril kind of takes the opposite approach of OpenAI, I would say, where they just say, we're pro the U.S. interests, we're creating defense tech for the US, and that's their end goal.
Yeah.
Whereas OpenAI says their end goal is benefits humanity. It's like, okay, well, the US military and benefits humanity could be in the same direction. They could also not
But
be
it's
in the
difficult
same.
for them to coexist in
like,
a statement like
there
that.
will eventually be certain tensions, right? So
Yeah, it's why there was like so much scrutiny on Palantir in general, because they were entering into these defense contracts, but they're very much for profit. OpenAI is the one that's saying they want to benefit humanity, and then they're entering into these contracts. So it doesn't really make sense.
I think people are like scared of the up and coming AI theocracy. Like, if power is determined by AI and then AI is like associated to countries.
yeah, like we were talking about the US military using AI, and I think to your point, it's like AI could decide who the most powerful country is,
Yeah.
and who the most powerful people are.
Yeah, and if you look at the investors who are in OpenAI, all of them have like personal interest in the US government still staying on top of world power, right? Of course they're going to like try to get OpenAI to pivot for profit and also work with defense contracts.
And defense contracts have so much money in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend too much time on defense, because I will say in 2021, 7 people leave OpenAI to start Anthropic. And their mission is essentially a response to OpenAI, saying they're going to prioritize safety, but they're also working in defense tech. My question out of all of this is, when the people that leave OpenAI left and they talk about safety not being prioritized, what are the examples they had in their head? But it clearly isn't a substantial thing for a lot of them if
Yeah.
they're doing the same thing at Anthropic. Maybe it's just the amount of budget dedicated to these safety teams.
Yeah, I also think just like the focus on it in general, because I know that the head of that safety team left earlier this year. And so it kind of dissolved along with the super alignment team that got dissolved as well. And I feel like especially for a lot of these researchers that are deep into it, that is the core reason why they even like chose to go there over some like for-profit AI lab in the first place.
Yeah, and the point of a public benefit corporation is that you have some legal protection from shareholders if they sue you for failure to maximize profits, because that isn't your only North Star.
Yeah.
I'm curious in what situations OpenAI or Anthropic would actually choose to not maximize shareholder profit, because I don't honestly see a difference between the way OpenAI would operate compared to any other for-profit company at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that also gets into the question of like what precedent are they setting by switching? Because like to your point, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be a for-profit company. Like that's the way capitalism works.
Yeah, I don't think people will do this going forward because it was so controversial.
I think it's more of just like how much, like you were saying, like how many resources you allocate towards the for-profit innovation versus the non-profit innovation.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit against what they did, because I feel like the entire point of them having the business model that they set out with was with the knowledge that something like ChatGPT and AI would explode and determine the future. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense for me that happened. The way ChatGPT became so viral was their literal reasoning for not having a normal business model.
Yeah.
Earlier you were talking about how like when they shifted from nonprofit to for-profit, it like got a lot of backlash, and it's like likely that another company wouldn't do that. But I'd actually like argue against that, just because OpenAI was able to pull it off because of the amount of capital they had.
Yeah, but the amount of capital they had was because they had a for-profit arm. I don't think that companies won't have a non-profit arm, because a lot of companies have a non-profit arm.
Yeah.
But I think like for-profit companies will have a non-profit arm, but non-profit companies may not have a for-profit arm in the tech space. I just don't think it makes sense. Like, what was the point of all of this? Why not just start as a for-profit company? What did you achieve?
Well, I don't think that they knew. Like, I think the way OpenAI started, they genuinely were a research lab when they originally started, and they didn't know that this was going to happen. So it makes sense. I kind of
disagree, because, like a little bit, because my understanding of it is that they decided on their business model because of the ability of AI to have like all of this commercial impact. Because what I'm saying is, before I agree, like they're a research lab they're just a bunch of scientists. Like they're not worried about commercialization.
Yeah.
But then as they think about like not even commercialization, but like the creation of ChatGPT and stuff, they decide to be a nonprofit because of the potential commercial impact.
I mean, I don't think it's like specific to the commercial impact though. I guess like it depends how you define like commercially used. I think like ChatGPT is like not what we're talking about, but I think that the broader AI conversation is what we're talking about. So I guess it's like the point to which they've commercialized by now, I think is like nothing in comparison to like the mission that they're setting out to achieve.
Yeah. Like everything that's happened is well within the realm of probabilities that they considered when setting out to be a nonprofit.
Well, I think that nobody knew when AI would become like widely adopted.
Yeah, like it's kind of like AR, VR, for example. Like people like thought it would be this like huge big thing. Like people like put like so much money. Yeah.
They would change the way people lived lives.
And it didn't at all. Like if we look at it today,
it could happen in the future, but it's just not happening
on it
right.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Sure, but she's saying like
it hasn't happened.
But
it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, like I'm saying, like to your point, who knew when AI was going to take off and like actually have a holding with like just like general.
So it's, I mean, like similar to like SpaceX in that case, where it's like they know that space travel and life being multiplanetary is going to exist at some point. It's like how far in the future will it exist?
I think that eventually it'll come out more specifically why that amount of people left.
I agree. I'm so curious. I'm waiting for the documentary.
Yeah. Well, what a spicy story. Everyone always wants to make money after they realize they can.
The world is a greedy place.
Well, that wraps up our final episode of 2024 and also our final episode of season 1.
We made it, guys.
Oh my god, I can't believe we're here. So we'll be going on a break for 2 or 3 weeks and coming back with season 2 on January 9th. We won't give many details yet about how our season 2 is changing, but we hope you stay tuned.
Yeah, we're super excited about it, and follow us on all socials because we will be continuing to post at Get the Check Pod. So
Yeah.
definitely make sure you're subscribed.
Yeah, and we want to just thank our friends and family for supporting us through season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I couldn't have done it without a lot of the nice words from everyone.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate you guys listening, and our DMs are always open. So if there's any feedback or any like topics that you're
wanna
interested
hear
in
about.
hearing,
Yeah.
like we also would love to hear that.
Okay, bye.
Bye.